Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage and the AZU project. This is the AZU engine, very tiny. And as you can probably see, it doesn't exactly look like it did when I removed it from the chassis in the previous video. And that is because I have disassembled it a little bit and cleaned it. And of course I recorded it all. I pressed the button, but unfortunately I hit the wrong one. And my camera got this function where it films in slow motion without audio. Don't ask me why. It looks pretty cool, but it's around 2.5 hours of me doing like this, removing covers, removing screws, and cleaning. So there's nothing really I can do about that. It would be really weird to make it dirty to show it once again. But this is where I'm at. I removed the covers. I'm compiling a list of stuff that I need. My plans is not to take it completely apart, but my plans are to remove the cylinder head, inspect the bores. Remember, I did do a compression test on this engine and it showed around 145 on each side. So it should be more than decent. So I think the engine is actually pretty healthy, but I'm gonna check, and if anything looks worrying, I might change the barrels. I'm also going to see if I can inspect just a little bit inside the engine. I'm not sure it will be possible. I hope that I don't have to separate the two halves because I don't think it's necessary. But if it is, I will do it. And yes, it would be nice to completely renovate everything and take everything apart and clean it. But this channel is not about doing stuff like that. It's about reviving stuff. And I don't want to get lost in complete restoration. I actually find it a little bit demotivating. Because if you think you have to do everything right, it's a little bit easier not to do anything at all. And I like to do something, so that's what I'm gonna do. Continue this strip down of this engine. It really cleaned up nicely. I took a brush to it and agitated the dirt and used some degreaser and actually powder washed it in the end. And as you can see, it really cleaned up very nicely. Remember, this is most likely the original engine. I don't know if it is, but it's most likely from the 50s. And yeah, it looks really nice. This is slightly different than what I'm used to, because out here we have a dynamo contraption on the actual crankshaft of the engine right there. This is a 6-volt system, very old school, and I have no experience in this and it looks a little bit worn. But what I hope to do is to just change the brushes and clean up the wires, change the wires, and hopefully it works. Of course I didn't think of checking that before removing this engine, and that was a bit of a shame. But if it doesn't work, then we're just going to have to deal with it later. I don't know if it's possible to just mount an alternator on it if needed, but we'll see about that. For now, I'm just going to ignore it. But yeah, let's start the strip down. And the first thing I want to do is to remove the oil, because it's still full of oil. Hopefully what comes out of this engine doesn't look too bad. Could possibly be a little bit of water in it now that I have pressure washed it, but I did take care and plugged all the holes before doing so. So hopefully not. Also hopefully some oil comes out. Yep, oil is coming out. It looks a little bit watery, but nothing bearing-like, so that's good enough. I'm gonna refit the drain plug, just to not make a mess. So next up, I'm gonna remove the valve covers and check the valve gear in here. On the 602 engine that I'm used to working on, these are made of steel. These are aluminum, really pretty pieces. I know the steel ones tend to be over-torqued and deformed. You probably shouldn't do that on these. They will crack for sure. There we go. Some oil normally comes out. Yep. And actually it looks pretty. Ugh. Okay, that didn't look that nice. It looks like a lot of old oil is in this engine. Probably due to oil neglect. oil change neglected. It probably has stood for a long time with the old oil in. But it is also pointing towards maybe digging a little bit deeper into this engine. But I'm going to remove the cylinder head. These has already been off once. I put them back on when I pressure washed it. And amazingly, none of them snapped. They always gives problem on the earlier, or the on the 602, but maybe it's different on these, or maybe I was just lucky, I don't know. But they all just came loose. There we go. So let's remove that cylinder head. I'm just going to undo this oil feed firstly. Hopefully. Yep. Comes loose. Normally it's not the easiest thing in the world to separate these, at least not on the later ones. Very often the barrel will come out with it. I think it's the same in this case, and it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to pull it and try to separate it off the car. Honestly, it looks decent. There's no play in this at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the same on the other side. There we go. Oh, that actually came apart like it is supposed to. That makes it easier, but still I have to remember to control the push rods. I have dropped these quite a few times, and it's not a great way to to handle them. Honestly, I think this has been apart and changed very recently because it's completely soft and nice. Maybe, yeah, maybe this is a waste of time to do, but I'm just going to take the barrel out also. Okay, this is a problem though. So I just saw that and thought that doesn't look good. But you know what? It's the same on the other side, just on the underside, not on the top. It's just very weird that it's not straight. I have no idea why that is. There's probably a good reason for it. Also a lot of rings, by the way. Gotta be a reason for that, but at first glance I thought it was cracked piston. But it's the same on both sides, but on this side it's pointing up, and on the other side it's pointing down. So yeah, I just learned something new about these engines. What I want to do next is to try to take a look inside the engine and assess the camshaft and the crankshaft as good as I can. It will be a little bit difficult without taking it apart, but at least I can see the lobes on the camshaft, and it doesn't appear to be bad. I think it looks good enough in there. I think it would benefit from a oil flush or a couple of oil changes in a row. But looking at the camshafts down there, it looks pretty nice and decent. On this one it looks dirty on one side, but it's because it's not running on that. It's running on the left or the right side and pushing against the tube, the bucket over there. It looks really nice, and also very often these bearings are bad, at least on the 600, and there's absolutely no play in this. So my conclusion is that this is just fine. Also nothing, even from side to side. It's the gudgeon pin, I think it's called, is fine. The connecting rod bearings are fine, and yeah, you know what? I think this is as far as I'm gonna go on the engine. Now I'm just gonna refresh all the seals and check the bores and so on, of course, and then put it back together. I would probably like to take this one off to make sure that oil flow is good in that. It's built in a different way than the later models. Normally it's impossible to take this apart on the later models without snapping them, but this looks a little bit better. So I think that's the thing I'm gonna do. Anyway, it's late. So this will be all I'm going to do today, and then I'm going to continue on this in a couple of days' time, actually, because I'm going on a small trip. And when I get back, I can continue, and hopefully the parts that I will need for the refresh will be here, and then I can continue on it. So see you in a bit. A couple of days later, and the parts arrived, and I've been working on other stuff, but I actually noticed something while inspecting the bores of the engine. It looks decent, but there's no cross hatching really. But the thing that I noticed is that it's feelable. The edge is feelable. So I actually got new barrels and pistons for this engine. They are right over here. They are old stock. The problem is that they have been stored slightly bad, so they are quite surface. So there are some surface rust on them. I don't think it's too bad. The inside looks decent, and that's the important bit. But what I'm going to do is to just drop them into some evaporust. I have never used that before, and it's not sponsored or anything, but hopefully that will remove that surface rust and loosen everything up, and then I will inspect them, of course, and if they are all right, then I will put them on. Evaporust are supposed to remove rust without damaging the surface underneath, so hopefully this will do the trick. We'll see. And it should be non-toxic and all that, which is also nice. I never tried to use it before, but I have mates who have been using it with great success. Now it's time for me to try it. Let's see. Just gonna let that soak and see what happens. So it's been soaking for around 3 hours, I think. Apparently this stuff is not harmful, but I like to wear gloves anyway, but it's probably not necessary. But it seems to have removed the rust. Oh yeah. Even the one inside of it cleans up perfectly. Bit of a marking, but it doesn't really matter. It will actually hold the oil, but it can be polished away with the rubber glove. This stuff is nice, apparently. I'm going to rinse it off in water over here. Just to get it off again. I'm not sure that's even necessary, man. Oh well. And also this stuff shouldn't harm aluminum. The piston is aluminum. It gets some yellow residue on it, but I'm not sure where that's from. Anyway, the rust is away. I wonder if the piston is stuck. It was stuck before. I didn't try to push a lot on it. Oh, it's already free. It was slightly stuck before, and I didn't want to risk snapping a piston ring or something like that. But now it's just easy to withdraw. And this piston is different than the one on the engine. The one on the engine is not cracked, but it looks that way down here. But this is the same size. There's still some goo in the rings, so I think I'm going to soak the piston a bit longer so I can clean it up without... Oh, it's actually already coming loose. But it would be nice to get all that goo off. I actually think it's solidified grease of some kind. But yeah. Now this was the area that was quite rusted before. And now it's just fine. Also down here was rusted. So this stuff really did what it was meant to do, which is nice. So I can use this with no issues. But even though it took the most of the rust away, I still have some discoloration. It's not feelable, but I'm just going to hone it a little bit just to get that off. Yep, I like that. That's good enough. Before installing the cylinder head and cleaning them up and all that, I do want to check if they are actually leak-free. The compression was decent, but still, now that I have them off, I better check them. So I'm going to hook up my vacuum gauge to firstly the inlet, like that. Then I'm going to put in some water, or petrol could also be used. It's a bit more thin flowing, and then I'm going to try to pressurize it. Oh! Well, that's not good. That didn't start well. So this is what I call a leaking valve. Let's just check the exhaust side also. Yeah, it's also bad. Okay, so we're gonna have to take this apart and check those valves, and hopefully I can lap them in or something. I'm just marking the push rods so I can fit them the same place as I take them out. And this is a little bit less serviceable than the later models, or at least it's different. It's easier to remove the rockers and... Well, maybe it isn't, but I haven't tried on this one before. It's just a different setup than the later models. There's a spring here. There we go. There we go. Now I can remove the valves. And it's a bit slanted, so I'm going to put a plastic box underneath. Then I can clamp. I need to have something to push against the valve so it doesn't just go down like that. There we go. That was one valve out. So this is the exhaust valve, and this is the intake valve. Gotta be honest, I do not like the look of these valves. They are looking very concave-like. The valve seats are also very worn. They can be saved, I hope. The valves I don't have much hope for though. They got quite a lot of wear. It's difficult to film, but it's just crazy looking, concave and everything. I'm gonna order a set of new valves for both sides. Then I hope to be able to cut the seat and make it work. So this will be all for now. So this is the end of part 1 of this engine revival, which is snowballing a bit, which is to be expected. It is always hard to find the correct balance between fixing and just living with whatever wear there is. But those valves, although the compression seemed rather alright, I'm not sure how much these are supposed to do, but I thought 145 was decent. But I expect a lot of compression to have been escaping from those valves, because at least 3 of them were really, really leaking, and there is only 4 in this engine. So even if it worked, it would probably just burn the valves within a short amount of time, and that would be a shame. So this is the end of part 1, as I already mentioned. The only thing I know is I cannot say how many parts this part of the journey will be in. I hope it will be a 2-part journey, but who knows. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.